After a 1-5-1 start, the Flyers have started to develop some identity again. And even though they have had their 3-game winning streak snap Monday, they continue to build. With our latest Broadcasters Roundtable, Tim Saunders with Brian Boucher, Todd Fedor, and Jim Jackson. It kind of took a little while for the Flyers to get back to some of the things that made them successful last year. I guess the lesson is that that's not automatic coming out of training camp. They didn't get the start they wanted, but Boost, they started to turn things around a little bit here and gotten back to what they did last year.
Yeah, it was funny. We talked to Travis Sanheim one of the post games and asked him that very question, and he said, you know, it's you come into the season and you think it's just going to happen, but you've got to put the work in. You've got to consciously think about how you're going to compete, what it takes to compete, what made you successful last year. And I think that was it for the Flyers. I think early on in the season, maybe you think you're going to show up and it's just going to pick up where you left off, and the reality is that's not how it works. It's not a switch. You gotta consciously think about it. You gotta compete every day. You gotta be hard to play against. Can't let pucks get to the net. Something that was good for the Flyers last year. And now, in recent weeks, we've started to see it. They've been harder to play against. Their defense is shoring up, and because of that, their goaltending seems to be getting better. I think it's all like one thing takes care of the other, and it's looking a lot more like the team we saw last year.
Kind of back to basics to begin with, right? That defensive structure wasn't there at the start.
It just seems to be the always way it goes. If you got to find something, you get back to the basics of the game. Go to the net, like just for the forward, speaking for them, they started going to the hard areas on the ice. Couturier started going right in front of the net, got a couple on the power play. And then that's what they're talking about when you're talking about playing the right way and being on the D side of pucks. Like all of those things like Bush was talking about, you forget that over the summer. You don't realize you've got to re-implement those things every single year, every single night. That's kind of the key. Sign of a young team doesn't really get that right away. Or even sometimes the best teams who are rolling at the end of the year slub at the start of the year. So every year you've got to get in that mindset, and you've heard it last year. That's all Torts was talking about, mindset. We bring in a star like Michkov, that can distract the whole group, And then having the excitement around him, the buzz around him, and a young group, there's a lot of reasons why you have the start that you had, which honestly wasn't really that bad. Like if you look back at last year's start, we were playing better teams, but from the record perspective, it was kind of the same. But the way that they were playing was not even comparable, right? And then those last couple of games, probably last 6-7 games here, they're really hard to score against. The shot blocks are way up, so that structure seemed to have been found, especially in the last couple of games.
Hey, it's chicken and egg, though. The game that I thought really was the turnaround was the Tampa game, when all of a sudden they started getting some saves. I mean, early in the year, except Sam, obviously, they weren't getting many saves from the backup goalies. And Boosh, we've talked about this, how much that impacts how a team plays.
It's all goaltending, isn't it?
I mean, it really does help how they play. Every player we've talked to has said it. Even Travis Sanheim said that. No question. When you're starting to get saves, you feel you can do more. You can feel you can attack the play more. No one's attacking the play more now than him. And so I think that did help, having Fedotov suddenly show, hey, I can play at this level. I mean, it's still a small sample size, but three games in a row he's played really well. Obviously, Sam was playing solid. You put that together, no doubt the team's playing better. There's no question their checking game has picked up. Still, sometimes some puck management issues, but I mean, absolutely their checking game has picked back up, and that's what made this team last year.
You could make the argument, you could go back even a little further. It's the second half of this game in Washington. I thought they started to kind of turn things around, started to get the goaltending. The transition game is what made this club, in my mind, so much more exciting last year, and that's starting to return.
Yeah, you're right. Last year, I mean, it jumped off the page. Every time they defended well, they were anticipating where the play was going next, and that was north. It's funny. I think about the chicken or the egg. As an ex-goaltender, if I got the sense they were defending hard for me, it helped me.
Yeah,
it's true. It's funny that Sanheim would say that. The goaltender makes a few saves. I think everybody just had to get on the same page. But as far as a transition game, it's like you defend well, you defend hard, you get the puck back, and then you can start to think about where you're going next with the puck. And we're starting to see that a lot more. We haven't seen it on the PK so far this year just yet, just like last year. Last year, that was real noticeable. But 5-on-5, we're seeing it.
And I got to tell you, Timmy, not to put it on one player, but Emil Andrae had a lot to do with the transition game.
Yeah,
good point. Yeah.
He was really good moving that puck up, and obviously they missed Cam York, who does that well too. But you get him, and obviously he's hurt now too. But at least as we record this, but he just had those transition passes. All of a sudden, we saw these odd man rushes again. So if they get the defense doing that, Sanheim does it more with his legs. York can do it with the passes. Andrae can do it with the passes. Drysdale is obviously a guy that you'd think could do that as well. So obviously those guys are hurt right now. So
And last year we saw it with Walker right off the hop.
No doubt.
Right? That
no
was the
doubt.
thing that
He
stood
was
out.
so
Yeah.
important to that
Yes.
team.
Yeah.
So we're 6 weeks into the season. To me, absolutely the number one story for my money is the emergence of Travis Sanheim, because he's gone to another level that I wasn't positive was there.
Yeah, and I think it has to do with a little, like, he's good. We seen that last year. The way the team responds is a little different this year. When they see him get going up ice, they all get going. And when he takes that puck, I think he's taken a much bigger role this year. And what's really impressed me is he hasn't faltered. He's gotten those high-minute games. He's playing like an Iron Man. He's gotten those high-minutes games, and Torch keeps throwing him in. He's given him more power play time last night. He's managing it well, and you don't have to stop and you don't have to let off. I think that's the biggest improvement. Obviously, I'm trying to think of the word, right? Stamina. That's what he's got. He's got the stamina to continuously go out there. And if you can put him on there, like, it's almost like a Pronger type player. Give him more minutes, you're going to end up with more wins at the end of the night.
Not that the fan base cares so much about this in Philly, but he's got to be part of the conversation for Team Canada.
Yeah, and I was going to get to that. Like, let's go back a little bit here. Let's think about what happened over the last couple of years with Sanheim, right?
Yeah.
Contract negotiation,
Yep.
signs a long-term deal, talk about being traded, right? All that, like, chips away at, like, who you are as a person, as a player. Like, you have feelings, okay? I'm speaking from experience. Last year, he reproves himself to the new group, right?
Yep.
That he's for real. Has a great year. Now he wants to follow it up. Now we've got some international competition coming down the pipeline. Not only the four nations right now, but in 2 years after that, we got the Olympics in Milan. Don't tell me that this guy's not motivated to go, because it's not about the contract. The contract's signed. He's locked up long term.
Right.
He's focused on that. Like, he wants to, cement that on his resume, and that's what's motivating him. In my opinion, that's what I see from the outside, and there's nothing wrong with that. This is not about, like, he wants to get paid or anything like that. This is about being the best player he can be so he can represent his country, and the Flyers are the benefactor of all that.
I think he's also motivated by a certain healthy scratch in Calgary, which didn't sit well with him. He's not an emotional guy. He doesn't go out and yell and scream, but we saw him after that. That hurt. He had a lot of people, to the game, and that's where he played his junior hockey. And I think he wants to prove his coach all the time. We talked to Werenski in Columbus, same kind of thing. And first time he got scratched by Torts, he was not happy, but now he credits Torts. Torts has been good for Travis Sanheim. It was tough love at its toughest, but I think there's still a little bit of, I'm showing him and showing others. I mean, obviously, Danny Briere basically traded him too.
Yep.
So he's showing everybody in the organization, hey, I'm for real. But I think he did that last year. This year, now, as you say, he's taking it to another level where he's showing everybody, the whole hockey world.
He's a true number one defenseman.
He
now.
is,
And Torts is another guy that he'll immediately point to. Brad Shaw is pretty important in the
Cannot
developing of young
mention him,
defensemen here.
Yeah, have to mention him.
Yeah, I mean, behind every great player, in my opinion, is a coach that helps him, right? I know in the goalie coach position, it's huge. I mean, like, because you're on an island by yourself. It's the goalies and the goalie coach, so you rely on those guys a lot. I would think for a defenseman, it's quite similar to have an ex-D-man, an ex-NHL D-man to be there with you, to help you through, some wrinkles in your game. Also to recognize when you're doing something well, to make sure you get out there and maximize what you're doing. To me, it's the maturity of the player in line with the proper coach that's there from, and we're seeing, greatness out of Sanheim in the last, 10, 12 games.
Yeah. Sometimes bad things can turn into good outcomes. And I'm thinking about injuries to guys like Cam York. Now Jamie Drysdale's on IR. It's an opportunity. It's an old cliche in hockey. Some guys' misfortune is somebody else's opportunity. And a couple of young defensemen have come in. We talked about Emil Andrae. I go back to thinking about Shane Gostisbehere. Totally different player, right? Mm-hmm. But when Gostisbehere came up from Lehigh the last time, it was pretty clear to me that he wasn't going to see the American Hockey League again. Are we close to being able to say that about Emil Andrae?
I mean, that's a decision for the coaches. That's one they have to make. And I think that decision in itself has become a little bit more of a focal point because of his play. Like, since being called up, the guy is... I mean, he started the transition game for the Flyers up with a couple great passes. Like, that's really what's changed it. Oh, wait, we can do this, right? I can take it back to a pass to Michkov. He started setting that stretch pass. He started playing defensively a lot better. He's a little tougher. Like, he plays a little stronger. He's got to be showing his edge a little bit more. I really liked everything that I seen about him. I'm sure that the coaches are going to have a tough time sending him down to the minors because he's done everything that they asked of him when he went down there. And then you got to give credit to those guys down in Allentown, down with the Phantoms.
Yeah, Lappy.
It's a tough job to keep those guys going when they're riding the buses and they've had a taste of the NHL. It's a tough thing to keep those guys going and motivated. He came back up here with a great attitude. Like, if you want to take a lesson from that, go down, do your work, put your time in anything you do. Mm-hmm. Come up with a good attitude and apply what you learned. The coaches are going to keep you. So I think they're going to have a tough time setting him down. I want to see him back out there again for sure. It was disappointing he's going down with the injury and stuff.
Spend 5 minutes talking with this guy, and you love him.
Yeah.
I mean, he's just got this little, he's got a lot of confidence, but it's not cockiness. It's a perfect amount of confidence, and he's really introspective about his own game. And Lappy, who, by the way, has said on record, does not expect to see him again. But he doesn't make the call. But he said that last year he had a good year in the AHL. And he could have easily gone into the offseason saying, okay, I had a good year. I'm just about ready for the NHL. But Lappy said to him, you're good in the AHL, but to make it in the NHL, you're going to have more pace to your game. Not necessarily speed pace in terms of his skating, but decision-making. You're going to have to be and he said he went into the offseason and he worked on quickness, agility, all that stuff, and came back this year much quicker. So he said that showed to me, Lappy said that showed to me that this kid's not satisfied with, okay, I'm going to make the NHL. I want to be very good at the NHL level. And when you talk to Emil, he just oozes that, I want to do whatever I have to do to be the best. He understands being sent back down last year, didn't like it, but I think he used it as motivation, similar to what Sanheim did, and he's a better player because of it.
I remember seeing him play at the World Junior Summer Showcase in Plymouth a few years back after he got drafted. And the thing that stood out to me in his game was that this guy had some bite to his game. Like, he was a real competitive guy, even though he was small. And I know people were comparing him to, I think some people were saying, oh, Kimmo Timonen, and yeah, I see that. But I saw something a little more than that. I saw like a guy that actually had some jam to him, and I was like, wow, that's at that level against guys that are his age. Like, okay, I see it. That's good. When he came up last year, he was in over his head. He was just in survival mode. He was not ready. He had a nice camp. But then in the first 4 games, we saw it. He couldn't escape the pressure. The game looked too fast for him. I didn't see any of the stuff that I saw in when he was playing junior that made him stand out. Goes to the minors, got to play him in all those situations. You get all those reps. You figure another 70 games of professional hockey. Mm-hmm. Those are important reps. Play 19, 20, 21 minutes at that level. That's important minutes to play that prepared him for this. Now when he gets called up, you see a much different player. You're starting to see the guy that you saw at the junior level that is here now because of the reps that he put in down.
Goaltender's got to love to see a D-man back there that can get out of trouble just with his feet. Just go.
Yeah, because if you're a goalie, you yell at a guy on you, skate, and a guy that can actually skate, and instead of like panic, flip it, or panic, throw it. Those are the guys you're like, oh my goodness, you can't talk to those guys too much, because if you give them too much information,
Yeah.
you might spook them.
blow it up.
You know, I've had a few of those guys, but when you yell at a guy, well, that's if a winger gets down low. When a winger gets
What are you
below the
doing
hash
down
marks
here?
and he gets down there, and all of a sudden he's the D-man and he throws it to the spot where he was supposed to be, you got trouble. But yeah, I mean,
that, did you,
Bush
French?
has been
Come
like,
on.
"What are you doing down here?"
Get back to your spot.
but yeah, I mean, you give a command to a guy like that, and he can move and skate, and like you said, the decision making with pace, like quickly move it, right? And it's predictable. Guys can read off that.
I love Lappy's. You mentioned Ian LaPerriere down in Lehigh, and his attitude is, yeah, I'm now suddenly without my best D-man, but that's what I'm here for. That's a badge of honor that I wear because we got him to the next guy. And you're right. I don't think Lappy expects to see him back.
No, man. So they look at building another. And there's a guy down there who we don't talk about very much. He's having an unbelievable year.
There are a couple,
Samson,
actually.
Yeah. So, you got to give them, Jason Smith, all those guys, a lot of credit down there because they're doing a great job. You look at the call-ups this year and the impact they've had on this team for sure. But one more thing on Andrae, and I told you this off the air. I don't know if we ever got to. I think we did get to it on the air. But you remember the Ottawa game? He got rammed into several times, and that was a little reminiscent of last year because he got run over a lot. So I went up to him after that game and said, "Wow, it looked like you had kind of a target on your back for that game." And he said, "I did, but it was my fault." And I said, "Your fault?" He said, "Yeah. If I'm not moving my legs, if I'm stationary, I'm not big. I'm gonna get rolled over. I have to be prepared." He said, "When I'm playing my game, I'm not gonna get hit that much. Once in a while, of course, but I'm gonna be able to avoid the hits." As it turns out, I think he got hurt on a non-contact play or something. But his size is something that he's aware of, and he says when he's on his game, it's not gonna be a problem because he will stay away from those.
So Andrae went out of the lineup. We don't really know the extent of that injury, but here comes another kid. Helge Grons surprised the hell out of me Monday.
Yeah, well, me too.
Me too.
And we alluded to that last night as well on the call when he was playing. I wasn't expecting that at all. Like he by the end of the game, he was playing minutes with Travis Sanheim. He was getting some BP looks. He just seemed like he belonged. That's rare. This is his first NHL game, and he came in playing like a big D-man. Is it sustainable? Is it repeatable? Well, I hope so. I hope he can continue to play that way. But yeah, kudos to the guys down there in Phantomville because these guys, they're coming up and they're ready to play, and they're playing the right way. And Helge did a good job last night. It's exciting to see when a player gets the opportunity and have success with that in their first game.
I text Lappy in the afternoon just to give me what's been positive, and it was quick. He said he's been assertive and direct, and he goes, he was doing that last year before he broke his hand. So it was trending, then he got hurt, and you got to restart it back up. But I saw an assertive, direct player last night. Like he was trying to be a difference maker in the game, as opposed to being a call up that takes a shift and is just here to survive to get his
Drink it
first
all
game.
in.
Just make the safe play. Like he was on his toes, getting up in the offense, got the puck to the net, made a nice couple seam passes. That was a real good first impression. Now the question will be, you got to follow it up,
Of course,
if you want to stick around. But listen, there's some injuries, you hope that maybe as a player you get like 5, 6, 7, 8 games in a row where you can go, as opposed to, oh my God, is this going to be a one and done?
Yeah.
The mental aspect of how you prepare as a player. It's nice to know, oh, there's an opportunity here for 5, 6, 7, 8 games. That doesn't mean you take your foot off the gas. It just means you can prepare accordingly to get going.
And that's kind of a case in point that shows some progression for this team is maybe a few years ago, you lose 3 top D-men and things are going to go south. Suddenly we've got some organizational depth that they can avoid that.
Yeah, I mean, this is why down there you got to play your prospects. You got to play them, like all situations. Even if they struggle at that in that particular area, work at it. Like Grons is 22, Andre's 22. Like you got to play these guys.
Yeah.
It could be easier to just play somebody that's older because it's easier. But your job down there as a coach for Jason Smith and for Lappy is to develop these young players so that you have situations like this, run into injury trouble, plug and place these young kids come in, and now we're talking Helge Grons after one game, like, oh wow, we've got something here. You know what I mean? Oh yeah, you got something because you played them down there and you gave them opportunity to develop.
That's one thing I think that is the development that the Flyers organization, the approach of development is you're seeing it. This is what I think what it really looks like. You take the patience. Emil Andrae is a perfect case. He could have come up probably last year throughout the season because he was their best defenseman. Bring him into the situation that we're in, would be good for his development. Play the long game with players like that is something we've never done. I think we're doing that now. And again, we can get a lot of pumping the tires of the guys down the Phantoms, but look what they're bringing up to us. If you don't focus on your youth and your draft picks with developmental approaches, you're not going to get players like Grons coming up and Emil coming up.
Yeah.
And that's what development is. That's something I think the Flyers are really focusing on, and you can see it in what's being produced. That's every franchise should be doing that. And I don't think everything.
No, not
does.
every
Not
team
everyone
is doing
does
it.
at all.
Yeah,
And that's
there's probably 5 or 6 that are doing it that
yeah,
way. You know,
and those are probably the ones that are going to end up winning because you need those reserves throughout the year that have to be coming into play at this level. And then if injuries happen, you need them to be able to move around.
So we talked about what a bright spot Travis Sanheim has been. I think what it comes down to is they just need more Travises because those two guys are the two best players.
Travi.
Konechny's been
I didn't
unbelievable
realize
this year.
that that's the plural for Travis.
Travi?
Yeah.
Travi.
We need more.
The
Travis.
Travi.
Travis is
7-game point streak for
Travis.
Konechny, and he's been the guy offensively all season long. He's in his 9th year. He's 27 years of age. Signed the big contract. Obviously, that hasn't slowed him up a bit. It won't kick in until next year anyway. But that hasn't changed him. The maturation of this player in 9 years has been amazing.
I guess I'm kind of biased. It's so important that when you draft a player, if you can keep that player who understands what it means to be a Flyer. And when I look at Travis Sanheim, when he was drafted, you see him early on in his career, he was around some impressionable people at that point, in his career where I think they made an impression on. He understands what this organization's all about, even if he wasn't a part of the years when it was when things were really humming here, right? But he gets it. There was some talk about, do you keep a guy like this long term? He had 33 goals last year. Is it, maybe you get a lot for him, but the way that he plays, the way he drags everybody into the fight every single night, emotionally, how could you walk from that? And to me, he gets it. He wants to be here. Sign that long-term deal. There's been no slip in his play. As a matter of fact, it might even be a little bit better.
The kid's a stud.
And why? Because he's got it. He just has it. And when you have a guy that has it and you've drafted him, you hold on to these players. They're important people for your organization.
We were all wondering what would that ticket be. And I remember conversations that we had with Keith Jones. He said, guys, he's going to get it somewhere.
Yep.
Why not here?
Jonesy said to us, it was you and me, he said, you don't get players like that all the time.
Yeah.
Because he's about so much more than his numbers. His numbers are great, but he is about so much more than that. He's the engine. He's the engine of the team. When you think about Travi, I go back, and Timmy, we've been around here a long time now, but to watch these kids, they are kids when they come in, and now these are two. They're both married. Konechny has 2 kids, and they're now well spoken. They're leaders of the team. To watch that develop is one of my favorite things about this job. Yeah. And these are 2 great examples because they are really leading this team now. But in TK's case, how many times have we seen games where the Flyers might be a little flat and he gets them going? So there's that element of it. He is an elite penalty killer, which John Tortorella deserves full marks for that. He was not a penalty killer until Torts said, I don't know why he hasn't been. And now he is, and he's one of the best in the league. He's just a good all-around player and just so important to this team. So, yeah, these are 2 guys. I remember it wasn't little talk. There was a lot of talk, at least in social media, about they got to move him. They got to get drafted. They can get a lot for Travis Konechny. And then there was talk about...
probably could.
Yeah, there's no doubt. And then there was talk about, $10 million or whatever. He ended up getting $8.75, right? So pretty close to that, but some people were saying, you can't pay him that much. Yeah, you can. He's that valuable.
Yeah.
He is.
And earning every penny of it.
No doubt.
Now. So it takes some depth offensively, and I think the Flyers are still waiting on some guys. The 2 snipers that come to mind, Owen Tippett and Tyson Forster, and there are signs that both are coming out of it. They both scored their 4th goal of the year on Monday. Forster's got 2 in the last 2, but it's away from the puck that show the signs that he's getting back to his game.
Yeah, for me, Forster I thought started good the first 2-3 games. Then there were games where, truthfully, there was no impact. There was no, the stuff that we saw last year, the good stick, the disruption, the winning battles on the wall, the smarts to make a play under pressure, like that was so impressive as a rookie. Didn't see it. You know, it almost like it was like maybe thinking about the offense too much as opposed to doing it the right way to get the puck and then work from there. But way more competitive here in the last maybe 6 or so games. And when I say competitive, you don't have to run somebody through the wall. Though I think I've said this to you, I would love for him to just, he's such a big guy, I'd love to see him just be a tad more physical, but that's not in his nature. But the competing and being physical, hard on pucks, don't take it away from me. I'm going to win that puck. Starting to see that a lot more. And getting to the hard areas. Last night he scores, he goes right there, gets that loose change in the game before, right, against Buffalo. He goes right to the hard area. That's where the goals are. And if you're willing to get in there and get your nose dirty, you're going to get them.
Yeah, I like his game. Yeah, he's gotten better and better. And he's in his sophomore year, right? They call it a sophomore slump. It's not. You can't say that. It's just it's too early to call it that. But he's a guy that did so much last year on the defensive side of the puck and the other areas of the game that he's an offensive guy, right? And that shot, we didn't see that shot, But now he's starting to come around. You need those young guys scoring, and playing physical too. In Philly, you got to play physical. You have to. That's kind of the MO. And a big body like him. The other one too is he's going to those tough areas to score. But with Tippett, he's got to play physical too.
He does.
He plays better when he plays physical.
He hits all. He
and
finishes all the time.
He's a strong. I'm always thinking oh, go get that guy. Because when he gets that little bit of an edge or somebody gets in his face, he gets going. He plays better, plays more physical. Pucks come his way, he gets more room. I don't necessarily want him playing that all the time, but those two guys together, because they're not going to play on the same lines a lot. But Tippett and Forrester play that physical style a little bit more. I would like to see that for those guys. Maybe not Tippett as much, but when he does play physical, he plays really well.
I think they're both streaky scorers throughout their careers.
Well, Tip we know is for sure.
They may get on the streak at the same time here in the Flyers. He's going to have a lot of offense for a while, but Tip, it's all about the tape.
Yeah.
He went to the white tape on his blade. That was right after we talked about it, he scored. So, but he's tried a lot of different things. He's tried a different pattern.
Yep.
He's obviously aware of the fact that he's not produced the way he wanted to so far this year. It's been weird though, Timmy. There have been games where this because we chart these things where he'll have 7 or 8 shot attempts or 5 or 6 scoring chances, nothing. Then he has 1 and he scores a goal. It's been a weird start for him. I still have confidence he's going to push 30, but he's really got to move to do that now. And we'll see if he does, but the Flyers need him to, for sure.
Let's finish where we kind of started, because you guys used the statement that it all starts with goaltending. I'm surprised, pleasantly so, especially after the start, with Harrison on the shelf, and I thought Harrison was the least of their problems. Sam Harrison, I think, has been outstanding all year long, but with him going out, there were some huge question marks between Ivan Fedotov and Alexei Kolosov. I don't think anybody knew what Kolosov was. He's been impressive, and Fedotov has come on and played 3 really solid games.
Tough spot for Fedotov, too, in Tampa, because he's not slated to start. It was supposed to be Kolosov, right? Kolosov at the end of practice, morning skate, says he's hurt. So that's not an easy situation to put Fedotov in, right? Who's taking some extra work down there, and all of a sudden, hey, be ready to go tonight against Kucherov and now they didn't have Braden Point that night, which was a nice break for him, but you could see the Flyers really buckled down defensively, and he made some timely saves. And I think those timely saves, and you're right, it goes back to that second half of that Washington game where that thing could have gotten really out of hand. Mm-hmm. He made a couple of saves, probably. I'm sure the talk with he and Kim Dillabaugh might have been like, hey, I know you didn't like giving up. I think he gave up 4 that game. Mm-hmm. I know you didn't like giving up 4, but let's look at the second half of that game, something to build off of, right? And you're waiting for that next opportunity. When's it going to come? And then he makes some timely saves, starts building momentum in the right direction. And then, truthfully, I will say this. You win in a shootout, that is a big confidence booster because that is you.
Did you ever win any big games in the shootout?
I did.
Take us back, Boucher.
Yeah, I did.
Don't get him started. Do not get him started.
I can't put this on. This is
monumental.
for behind the scenes, my cockiness, you know what I mean? But because it's all
He
about.
thinks it's behind the scenes.
It's an image burned in Hawks
You
history.
mean when I put a city on my back?
City on it.
Yeah. No, but what I'm saying is, like, when you, as a goaltender, when you do it under those circumstances, you win a game that way. It's not guys blocking shots. It's not. It's right. It's not.
you.
Oh, we defend. It's you. You have to do it. There's no hiding there. And Fedotov was able to come up and get his first win in that scenario. Had to have felt great. He rattled off 3 straight wins. He looks like he's more comfortable with traffic now. It looks like the speed of the game, he's catching up. He's ahead of plays. He's not behind. The game in Ottawa there was some situations where he was a little late and he got fortunate a couple of times. But that you need those breaks too. But that start in Tampa, tough circumstance, shootout, all of it, timely saves. That got him going. Now for Kolosov, hopefully he's 0-4, right?
Yeah.
As we do this, 0-4. I thought he played well last night against Colorado. Hard luck loser in that one. You know.
Back to Fedotov for a second. Between the Washington game and that Tampa game, he wasn't even dressing.
Right.
I mean, and
Tort said.
This is
the
all
other
when
guy
they
was
got a
suddenly the
third
number 2.
goalie
he-
thrown into the mix too.
Yeah, but I mean, Torts didn't pull any punches. He said right now he's our 3, and if you go to social media, he was forgotten. It's already done. I mean, it was ridiculous. It was too small a sample size, but I mean, he hadn't given us much to build on, right? Until maybe, as you say, the third period or the second half of that Washington game. But then he's out of it completely for about 10 days, and then Sam gets hurt. And he's back in, and at least as a backup. And then Kolosov gets hurt, and all of a sudden that Tampa game happens. So it's such a strange sport. But all of a sudden, here we are. If we did this, what was our last round table a couple weeks ago? It was like, what are they going to do with their goaltending? And all of a sudden they got 3. It looks like 3 capable guys. I mean, small sample size on the 2, on Kolosov and Fedotov. But at least they've given us something that. We have some hope for him.
Yeah, because the last time I think we were doing this, I think we were talking about maybe they should send Fedotov down to play some games.
Yeah.
Wow. It's
You
crazy.
think he wasn't thinking that?
Yeah, and listen, when
As a young goaltender.
and when they get to 2 goaltenders, there's going to have to be a decision made.
There is.
Yep.
And whoever they do send down has got to go down with the right perspective and the right mindset, because injuries happen fast and you got to be ready. You got to go down, play those games, be sharp, be ready, because when you come back, you're going to have to play and you're going to have to give your team a chance to win.
You hope Kolosov has seen that.
Yeah.
I mean, he's the one who
He's the one that
is saying
right
he
now
might go if he gets sent down.
Yeah,
So.
he should go down and play, and he's played good hockey.
But you hope that he's seen, though, with that Fedotov's situation, how quickly it can turn around and you could be playing up here.
correct, yeah.
Even
if you leave,
down
then
there.
it's not going to happen.
I think you got to give credit to Fedotov and probably the coaching staff too, is the adjustment, right? It happened very quickly and it was forced on him very quickly.
True.
He handled it well. You got to tip your hat to Fedotov because his game settled down. And it was the shootout. You said confidence, Garrett, like that was everything. Those are probably the 2 saves on that shootout where he was like, okay, he's letting the puck hit him now.
Yeah.
And it just seems like he found his game. And then he's gone kind of up from there. But to not get cold feet and not just, he bared down. He had to have bared down. I mean, you see him start to get to work. If that guy comes up, Kolosov's on my tails, he's taking my job. That is definite motivation because they're young. If he was an older goaltender, I could see probably be like, oh, it's shot. But 2 young goaltenders competing for that, the way Fedotov reactive and comes in and has the games that he does, and then his development, that's a professional, that's a good goaltender, that's a good sign, right?
Yeah.
The adjustment to the challenges that he had early on.
Yeah, I agree. The last thing I'll say about this, it's not even technical or anything like that. It's the character of a player and the fight that's in somebody when their back is against the wall that I like seeing most. Like, goaltenders, guys compete.
He's got a little bit of Boucher in him, huh?
Guys, well, I'm not saying, but guys can compete and can fight, can hit, and win a puck battle. But goalies have to compete in a different way, right? You're competing with your mind, with your emotions, how you feel. And like for him, he had to find a way to dig deep in a moment when probably just about nobody from a fan base or anybody was really believing in him. Right.
Yeah.
And I give him full marks for that. I got respect for that. Good for him. Hopefully he can continue. Like he's got momentum going in the right direction. You got to keep that momentum going. You can't forget what got you there. But it's much different than when we did this last roundtable.
Yeah.
For sure.
The other thing is too is like you could hear in the media, the players, his teammates, they started saying it. They were vocalizing it, saying, he's working hard right now in practice, putting the time in. You're best judged by your peers. To have those guys come out and say that he's doing the work, That's a good thing for him.
Coaches like to segment a long schedule, and it's going to be a kind of a sprint to the end of November here. 5 games in 8 days, 3 at home, 2 on the road, and then they got a 4-day break coming up to start December. So a race to the finish. 3 of those teams are behind the Flyers in the standings right now. So those are games is a segment they got to take advantage of.
They do. I mean, we all saw last year how losing games to some of those teams, the bottom feeders like Chicago, which is one of these teams, it obviously hurt the Flyers, and they have to. I think they've showed a lot to me in the game against Colorado because they were down 3 defensemen. And Colorado, while having lost their last game mainly because of bad goaltending, is really starting to get there. I wouldn't be surprised if you see them go on a run right now.
Oh, yeah.
And they are a supremely talented team. To hang with them minus 3D without your number 1 goalie as well, to me was very impressive. So I think they can hang with the good teams and they can beat some of them, but they got to take care of business. You're right, against the teams below them if they're going to hang in the playoff race.
For sure. And they've got some good teams coming up. They ran into a little bit of a buzzsaw against a very good Colorado team, and they saw that. Carolina's another one,
yeah.
so you got to be at your best to stay with the best. Our latest Broadcasters Roundtable for Brian Boucher, Todd Fedoruk, Jim Jackson. I'm Tim Saunders. Enjoy the games.